Leasing drivers onto your authority can grow your company fast or absolutely destroy it if you do it wrong. Hey y'all, I'm the Hotshot Doc, real life doctor, real life hotshot carrier, and I'm coming to you live out of North Alabama. Don't let the DOT man get rich off your totally preventable paperwork mistakes. That was a mouthful. Today we're breaking down lease-on agreements, and then I may go into how 1099 setups work and the critical differences between leasing contractors and hiring W-2 drivers. These are some confusing topics, and it's not necessarily about compliance as it is about company structure and IRS and government people. So let's start with what is a compliance thing, which is what a lease-on agreement is and why you have to have it. A lease-on agreement allows an owner-operator to run their own truck and trailer under a carrier's US DOT and MC authority. So the people that are doing this are typically 1099 independent contractors. They are using their own equipment and they're paid by percentage or per mile. It is by far the most common setup for hotshot carriers. This relationship, if you didn't know, is actually governed by the FMCSA. They have a whole rule about it. It's called Truth in Leasing Rules. And if you look for those numbers in the handbook, it's 49 CFR Part 376. So the 1099 simply refers to the IRS independent contractor standards. It doesn't really have anything to do with what a lease-on agreement is. If you have somebody using their truck and trailer and running underneath your authority, you have a lease-on agreement. It's not casual, it is regulated. They have a whole chapter on it. So, required lease-on paperwork. At minimum, a compliant lease-on setup includes a written lease agreement that meets all parts of Part 376. Clear compensation terms, who pays fuel, maintenance, and tolls, insurance responsibilities, chargebacks and escrows if you're doing that, termination language, and explicit independent contractor language. A copy of this lease must be carried in the truck while they are leased on under your authority. So what does this typically look like? What do you usually provide versus the leased on driver provide? So in a typical 1099 lease on model, the contractor, the driver, handles the truck and trailer, maintenance and repairs, fuel, and the bobtail insurance, because that's their vehicle. This is the whole point as a carrier of leasing on other people, is that you don't have to go out and have $5 million worth of equipment. You're leasing on people who own their own truck and trailer, so it's their job to keep up with it. Now, the carrier typically handles the COI, the primary liability and cargo insurance. They offer dispatch, and they handle safety compliance. So if you blur any of these lines, you're creating risk. And I think the best way to describe contracts and agreements is to protect both parties. Nobody wants to be taken advantage of by the other, and it's actually so important that the government went through and wrote down exactly what you need to do and be truthful in what they're leasing on with. No scammy scams. Let's keep going here. The misclassification trap that is a 1099 employee, and it is not specific to just this industry. It's 1099 across the board. It's completely misunderstood and or purposefully misused. So here's where the carrier usually gets burned. If you as a carrier force load acceptance, control the schedule of your driver, provide discipline like an employee, provide the actual truck and equipment, and pay hourly, this has essentially taken you out of an independent contractor status. That is a W-2 employee, with the biggest things being you forced a schedule and you disciplined. The IRS, DOL, and state agencies will all agree when they come back and audit you at tax time, you have an employee, you do not have a 1099 contractor, and now you owe a bunch of back taxes. Congratulations. Misclassification penalties will include back taxes, fines, wage claims, and forced conversion to W-2. So it will turn your whole world upside down if you do this wrong. So the question is, how is a W-2 employee different? With W-2 drivers, or what people usually call company drivers, you own or lease the equipment. The carrier owns or leases the equipment. The carrier controls the schedules. The carrier withholds taxes. So that's what goes into Social Security. It's your FICA, right? Your Social Security, the disability, the Medicaid, Medicare, the school taxes. That's what we mean when we're saying the withholding of taxes. Remember, you got your first job. It's the summer of 1995. You're working at the local burger and shake joint, and you were so excited about that first check. You'd worked like a whole 25 hours that summer, that week, in between eating popsicles and running down to the lake to go swim. And you get that first check, and like 30% off the top is gone. That's withholding taxes. Yeah, super fun. So as an employee, taxes typically get withheld. Workers' comp is required, so that's an extra insurance you have to have as a company who has W-2 drivers. And the only thing you don't need is now the Part 376 lease, because it's an employee, it's not a leased-on driver. So most small motor carriers, independent owner-operators, are operating with 1099 independent contractors. It's easier. You don't have to withhold any taxes. At the end of the year, you simply send the person a 1099. That's why they're called that. That's the name of the form the IRS uses to classify them, that says how much money they made that year, and then it is on the independent contractor to go in and file their taxes. Now, I will say, in this lease-on agreement, or if you do a separate independent contractor agreement that gets more specified, make sure both of these forms are saying the same thing, y'all. But also, the IRS will require you to have a statement that notifies the contractor that their 1099 will be delivered electronically, and that they have so many days to tell you if they want it paper or by mail. Make sure you put that statement in the lease on. It's an easily missed thing, and come tax time, it's a little too late to be asking. All right, so we've gone through that. What is the benefit of a W-2? It costs more upfront, but you, as a carrier, you're protected more. It's cleaner legally. It has the traditional setup for most companies, right? But we're talking big motor carriers that do this, not usually the leased-on guys, and usually not Hotshots. Those would be more big rig stuff. So is there a model that is more correct, more right? A 1099 lease-on setup for your company is faster to scale, lower upfront cost, but it does carry a higher legal risk because the IRS knows most people are misusing 1099. So you do carry a higher risk you're going to get audited. Now, I will say, since Lease-On and Hotshots are by far the most common company setup, the IRS knows this. There's a million different people trying to get started as their own owner-operator, their own motor carrier. So it's no surprise to them that you did 1099. But you run the risk of being audited more often. W-2 employees, they have a higher cost that's more to control, but it is much safer for long-term large companies. Basically, there's no universal answer. You just want to be compliant in whatever you choose, however you're structuring this. Know your long-term goals. As every school teacher and motivational speaker starts out with, know what your goal is for this company, for this setup. Always ask an attorney that is well-versed in these things, and ask legal compliance as well. I am neither of those. I am a random lady on the internet who happened to learn things the really hard way the first time around and enjoys starting businesses. So I'm just trying to save y'all some heartbreak and tell you what I've learned, and, let's all pull each other up by our bootstraps, if you will. Alright, so the hard truth of a lease-on agreement, it's not just a handshake and a percentage. People have this romanticized version of, yeah, man, we slap each other on the back and we all drive off into the sunset. Unfortunately, there's enough scammy people out there that now the government stepped in and it's not as much fun anymore. It's federal law, it's IRS law, it's one of the fastest ways new carriers get shut down and get audited and lose everything. Use real agreements, ask an attorney, understand the difference, and don't mix 1099 rules with W-2 behavior. Remember, 1099, you're their boss, but you don't have as much power over them. So it saves a lot of taxes, and it takes a lot of pressure off of you because you can just part ways. No reason required. Anywho, in my next video, We're probably going to break down a little bit about hazmat. Hazmat really deserves its own hour-long course, and I will specifically stick it under CDL. Non-CDL people cannot haul hazmat, so we'll do hazmat in the next video. Y'all, if this helped, give me a like, give me a subscribe, share it with your friends who have no idea what they're doing. Send them my way. We'll get you compliant and on the road. Don't forget that I have, if you want a model lease on agreement, I included the one I used for my company in my packet. That's for sale on Gumroad. Here is the link for that, hotshotdoc911.gumroad.com. And it gives you an example to use. I would say, again, get an attorney on board, make sure they review this stuff, and that it fits however you are setting up your company and the agreements that you want to set with your contractors. All right, guys, I'm the Hotshot Doc. I'm helping you grow your fleet without growing your legal problems. Roll Tide and roll on.